There is barely a day that goes by on my lesson tee where I don't tell somebody to turn their feet out. The benefits of foot flare could be one of the lowest hanging fruits in terms of golf improvement that you could ever make to your setup. Improved balance and sequencing, as well as increased rotation without placing unnecessary stress on the joints. It really is the ultimate win-win-win situation. And so it was surprising to me to see an article from the self-proclaimed fitness experts, TPI, that you should pin your right foot in at setup, turn it in, creating resistance and restriction that ultimately, in my world, would lead to more injury and less distance. Let's tackle the subject of foot flare today and help you understand what would be best for you. So when deciding how much foot flare you should have at setup, we need to take into account the range of motion you have, the internal and external hip rotation that you have, because that will decide how much foot flare you need. Generally speaking, younger people tend to have a larger range of motion and can get away with having their feet turned more straight. But that's not to say they can't benefit from having the feet flared out as well. And in terms of injury prevention, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. When it comes to turning the feet out, there's generally two schools of thought on this. Number one school of thought is the camp that believe that the golf swing is a resistance-based model. We're trying to twist and resist and turn into a joint to create some resistance and some stress. It's almost like people believe the body's built like a spring, but the body's not built like a spring at all. So that school of thought, which really is what this article from TPI was based on, is the idea that turning the trail foot in at right angles to the target line helps you to coil and resist into this trail side. We know, those that know that that's really not what happens in the golf swing at all. It's not beneficial. It restricts the length of the swing and it places unnecessary stress on the joint. Why would you want to do that? If you knew what to do, you'd just simply turn your foot out, relieve all the stress off the joint, and give yourself a much longer, bigger range of motion. It's not lost on me that some of the best players in the world have spent plenty of time out injured with bad knees and bad backs just because of this poor foot flare concept. Think about Jason Day and how much he struggled with his back over the years, restricting the flex in his knee in his backswing. Tiger Woods blew out his lead knee over years of having the foot turned in too straight and putting all that stress into that lead knee for a number of years. And more recently, Will Zalatoris has come back from an extended injury, discussing how he's turning his feet out now at setup to improve his rotation and take the stress off of his joints.
Finally, it gave out on me, but really the setup changes are pretty small. I've got both my feet kind of flared out a little bit, so I can be more rotary as opposed to more up and down and putting stress on my spine. I've got both my feet kind of flared out a little bit, so I can be more rotary as opposed to more up and down and putting stress on my spine.
Really easy exercise that you can try, even if you're just sat at home watching this video right now, would be to stand up and place your feet somewhat shoulder or hip width apart and turn your feet inwards or square to the target at right angles, if you like, to the target line. And whether or not you have a club doesn't matter. Just take your golfing grip, some golfing posture, and try to make a turn into your backswing. You could even then try to do that into the follow through as well. Just notice what's going on with your joints as you do that. Tell me what you feel in your ankles. Notice what you feel in your knees and even in your hips. What happens in terms of restriction is likely to occur quite quickly when you're doing the feet turned in exercise. And at the same time, just go ahead and now turn both of your feet out some 20 to 30 degrees and go ahead and make that same movement. Tell me what you felt. Have a think about it for a second and then give me some feedback down in the comments. Which one of those two movements felt easier to do? Which one had more restriction? Which one felt tighter? It's no surprise to me that golfers who have poor foot flare are limited in their range of motion because turning your feet in limits how much turn or rotation potential that each of these joints has. So turning your feet out is really just a free ticket to more rotation, and most of you certainly would benefit from that extra rotation. So just turning your feet out helps you to get more pelvis turn in the backswing, which equals more shoulder turn, equals more potential power, while at the same time taking the stress off the joint. So hopefully you can now see that the concept of foot flare is a beneficial one for you to use and utilize in your golf swing setup to help you make a better swing, create more power, and take stress off your joints. All of those things are good. Let's go ahead and hit a couple where I do it incorrectly, particularly this trail foot. Let's pin this trail foot in, which is what the article was saying. We'll allow the front foot to be turned out a little bit, but this back foot's going to be turned in. And I get to the top, oh my goodness, even as I do that, I can feel the stress immediately on my knee. That's really quite painful. And I noticed that happening quite early in my backswing, which is giving me a couple of other issues. I noticed my swing's not going to be very long. So if I do want to complete my backswing, I'm going to start lifting my arms, potentially bending my arms to make the swing long enough, because I'm not getting the rotation from the pelvis because I'm restricting what's going on down at the bottom here. So that's a problem. And I can also sense how the hands are starting to move out. They're moving out and away from me, this steep movement, as opposed to feeling like I can keep creating the depth that's necessary, as if I wanted to move my hands and club more around me on the arc like I would do normally. That's easy to do when I flare this foot out. When I turn this foot in like I was told to do in the article, I've now got this restriction that hits very early in the backswing. I'm going to start lifting my arms. That's the start of the over the top move. That's the slice. That's the lack of distance. Let's hit one of these and see what we get. Okay, I tried to hit that pretty hard and pretty standard as much as I could, and I could feel the restriction there, the pain actually in my trail leg as I did that. I was able to create 240 yards worth of driver there, but you can see that that thing sliced off to the right. The slice comes from the fact that I can't create the depth in my swing that I need to because I'm restricting what's going down here at the knee and the ankle level. Now let's try doing it with the feet turned out and see what the difference is. So this would be much more standard for me, both feet turned out. This trail foot and the front foot for me are turned out about the same amount. And I can immediately feel how that's going to allow this trail leg to start to straighten, the trail hip to start to move back. That extra turn that I'm going to be able to get is going to allow me to keep my hands and club working around me in the backswing. And that's going to set me up for a much better drive than that first example. So there's my draw, slight toe strike, which is why that started a little more to the right than I may have wanted it to, but significantly more distance, 276 yards, and a draw rather than a slice. That draw potential comes from the fact I'm able to keep moving the hands and the club around me by virtue of the fact I'm using my lower body correctly. By changing my knee flex and turning my hips, I'm allowing my hands and arms to go around me correctly, as opposed to what we saw when we pinned the foot in, turned the foot inwards. I go back and I'm no longer able to keep my hands and club on the grid lines for very long. I can't keep going inwards, there's a restriction, so I need to start to lift. It's that lifting that causes you to start chopping across the golf ball. It's true that foot flare has been demonstrated over the years. Hundreds of years of golfers have utilized the foot flare concept to their advantage. Have there been golfers who've played with the trail foot more turned in? Yes, there have been, but it's certainly not the masses, and it's certainly not what I would recommend for your average golfer out there looking to improve, looking to get the lowest hanging fruit, and looking to play the game pain-free. There's zero stress on the body when you do it this way. I'd like to think that TPI have changed their mind a little bit on this article. It was published some 12 years ago, but I'm yet to find a more recent article from them that refutes or rebuts this information. Be careful who you listen to out there. Make sure that your golf instructor is not just well versed in the anatomy and how the body functions, but how that function applies to the golf swing. The idea of doing a vertical jump test and seeing how high you can jump straight up and down in the air as being the deciding factor on whether or not you should do something in your golf swing seems to be a little bit off base for me. Those two things are not the same. A vertical jump and a golf swing are definitely not the same thing. So, like I say, be a little bit careful about who you listen to. Get your information from well-trusted sources and make sure that you're taking into account how your body works and how your body is designed to function. And to finish with, let's just talk about how to decide how much is the right amount for you. Really, it comes down to the point where you get the right amount of rotation in your swing while still feeling like you have that stability and that balance to be able to perform the swing consistently. Feet turned in, we've already discussed, is going to restrict the turn both on the backswing and into the follow through. But equally, if you were to turn your feet out too much and stand like this, now I immediately don't feel balanced. And if I did make a swing, because my foot's turned out so much, I could arguably have too much turn on the backswing. You'll find your happy medium. I'm sure you'll find where you're at your best. I would start by having the feet turned out some 20 to 30 degrees, both of them, and start there. That's where you'll really see a lot of expert players finding their happy place, somewhere between that 20 to 30 degrees of foot flare. So that's turning out the back foot and the front foot the same amount to allow for better rotation, increased rotation, remember, better balance, speed, and sequencing. So a discussion there around foot flare and how it can benefit your golf swing. I hope you found the video informative and useful. If you did, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Foot flare really is a low-hanging fruit, as I mentioned in the video. It's something that you can get a huge return on investment for a very little investment on your part. Turning your feet out really couldn't be more simple. Give it a try the next time you're at the driving range. Experiment with both the lead foot and the trail foot, turning it in and out accordingly, and try to settle on the best place for you in terms of giving you optimal rotation, balance and sequencing. All in all, you should see an improvement in ball striking, and I would expect you to see an improvement in distance as well. If you'd like to continue your education of how the lower body works in the golf swing, then you can check out this video I made right here on the knee flex change throughout the backswing. This is a hugely important topic that not only improves your propensity to hit the ball far, but also reduce injury. Or if you want to learn how to keep your weight forward correctly throughout the backswing, then you can watch this video I made right here on the hip movement in the backswing that makes weight forward very, very easy indeed.